Hi everyone, I'm Grandmaster Magesh Panchanathan, and this is Game Analysis with the GM with Kings and Queens Chess Academy. Welcome to the stream. We are going to be analyzing someone's game today, as we always do in our regular Thursday session. So let's go ahead and get started. I see some of our usual suspects here. I like that. To go over the game and have some fun during this analysis. Let's wait a couple of more minutes, a few more minutes until I give the question for the day. And I also want to make a couple of announcements. We do not have Challenge Your Chess Coach tomorrow. Given that it's a long weekend, we are actually closed Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I hope all of you are going to, all of you stay safe and, stay well. Enjoy your long weekend. But yeah, we will not have our Challenge Your Chess Coach stream. We will resume that the week after. The usual Friday ones, we're not doing that tomorrow. All right. See Ridhima. Hi, Ridhima. Dinesh, looks like you are in a different user ID today. I was just trying to recognize your thing. Hi, Dinesh. Before I ask the question, I also wanted to chat a little bit about what's going on in the chess world today. I guess most of you should have seen that the Chessable Masters tournament is going on online, and I saw something really, really nice this week, and I thought, this is the stuff we need to share with our students. Magnus Carlsen did something really, really nice against Ding Liren. I don't know if anyone of you followed it. Let's see if I can see anything in chat. I'm sure some of you have been following the tournament and know what is going on. Anish Giri is doing really well, of course. But Magnus did something very, very nice. Did you see it, Dinesh? Magnus had a very, I wouldn't really, it was not just over the board. It was something other than that, which was really appreciated by everyone else. That's right, he gave a queen for a pawn. Well, the full story is this. Magnus was playing Ding Liren and what seemed like a drawish position. Ding Liren had some internet issues and had to disconnect and eventually lost the game. So Magnus felt bad for getting that win. The very next game, he gave up his queen in like the third move and he resigned the move after that. So the scores would be level and they both would have a reasonably even match. And I think that's really a great gesture. He didn't have to do that. Nobody would have, no one is expected to throw a point or give away a point. If someone has internet issues, you could have simply said, yes, that's the way life is. You have internet issues. What can we do, right? But Magnus, I think, did something really, really commendable. I thought this is what we need in the chess world today. With so much problems, including online cheating and other things going on, I thought this is very refreshing. Magnus giving a point back voluntarily. He just resigned in like move 4 or something and said, you know what, it's not fair. My opponent had a difficult time with internet and I don't want to win the match like that. And of course he went on to win the match after that just by playing chess, which is exactly what you want to see. And the story would have been very different if he lost. And it would have been a big debate on what he did was right or wrong. But okay, so I guess with that said, we can get started with today's session. Let's see. Let me ask you the question and whoever gets it right. But I want to clarify a couple of things. I do prefer some longer games. I know over a couple of weeks, I got some blitz games and other faster games. It turned out to be pretty interesting games too, and pretty solid games too. So it's okay. I don't mind doing those things, but in general, I have a preference to do the longer games because when we go over the analysis, I think it makes more sense to reflect on what you could have done, the time you probably spent, and all those kind of things. So I think I would prefer that if you have, even if it's a game that was played a few months ago over the board, that's fine too. It doesn't have to be a recent game, a game that you guys think are interesting and you want to keep. All right, so here's a question for today, and I want you to pay attention closely because the full question is what I need to answer with. There is a world champion who played a famous double bishop sacrifice. I need the name of both the players, at least the last name of both the players of that famous game. The first, the world champion who was credited with this awesome double bishop sacrifice game. I need both the players. If you just tell me the name of the world champion, you will not win it. So just make sure you type in the chat both the player and his opponent together to be able to get this thing. So like I said, Ayush, I will not, the first person to give me both the names, it will not be one person. Okay, I think I have the answer. The first person who has given me the full thing is Dinesh. That is right. It is Lasker versus Bauer. And a very, very famous double bishop sacrifice game. So we do have a winner. Okay, Dinesh, if you want to email me your game, like I said, I would prefer something even older. That's okay. But if you don't have anything, and then if you want to go for something like a blitz, that's fine too. But I would prefer longer games. So Ayush, you're second after this. That's true. We could. I think last week I had promised Sai that one of his games would be unlicensed because he had some answers, but he is not available to come into the stream today. So I'm going to save his game for another day. And Ayush, yes, you could. But I guess the first thing is I need you to email me the game, Dinesh, and I will be ready with that. In the meantime, I want to show everyone the game that we are talking about. The famous Lasker double bishop sacrifice. So if you have not seen it, it is a treat, and I really, really recommend that you not only just see it, study it too. So while we are waiting for Dinesh to email, Dinesh, try to email the game, and Ayush, you as well, both of you can send the email. Let's look at this nice game. Lasker was playing white and he played the birds opening f4. Not the most popular choice these days, but so this was pretty nice because I think the game followed very normal flow. It was not any crazy stuff or anything, even though it starts with the birds opening. So b3 for a fianchetto. So he goes bishop b2, again development. So this is usually not that common with the d pawn blocked in, but since the bishop is on b2, this is okay, I guess. You don't need to really push the pawn. So b6, knight f3, bishop b7, knight c3, knight bd7, castle, castle. So up to this point, you can see that clearly every single piece is developed, nothing special. Let me see. In the meantime, Dinesh, make sure you send your game as soon as possible. I want to make sure that we don't have any delays in that. And Ayush, you as well. Please send me your games. While we're going through this, I want to make sure that we have that. All right, so all pieces got developed here. Very straightforward, nothing special. And the first maneuvering started with Lasker going knight e2 with the idea of knight g3. And he just did that. So we got 4 minor pieces. And the beauty is 2 bishops pointing towards the king. 2 minor pieces, the knights, possibly jumping in all of these areas. I know it's a lot of green arrows, but I think this is just really dangerous. Anytime you see such kind of activity, you should be a little careful. So queen c7 and knight e5. So up to this point, I think very normal, and white has developed a nice possible attack. Oh, so okay, looks like Dinesh sent his game in chat. Actually, I don't see it, Dinesh. If you don't mind pasting it again, go for it. Let me quickly show this again. So after knight e5, black played knight captures e5, bishop captures e5, and queen to c6. Now, I usually start going over stuff from this particular point because, I always ask my students, what would you have done as white? I know most players are like knight h5, all sorts of attacking moves, which I think is not bad at all. You could do something. But Lasker started with a prophylactic move. You see how the bishop and the queen are in the long diagonal, trying to go after g2. So he plays queen e2. Very nice. And then also setting up a simple trap on bishop b5. If black were to play like rook c8, which I'm not so sure why he would play that, but this I think is worth showing. Queen trap in the middle of the board. This is pretty cool. a6, and now comes the deadly blow. Knight h5. Strong move. And after knight takes h5, of course, the whole thing is probably planned ahead of time, but if queen captures h5, black gets to play f5, closing out the bishop's diagonal. But here, he launches a series of complete, opening up the opponent's king mission, which is very, very nice. Bishop h7, the first bishop goes, exposing the king. You got the next move, which is a follow-up with a check. King goes back, and then boom, bishop captures g7. Now, there's also a famous, if I remember right, Tarash Nimzowitsch game, which has pretty much the same theme. I'm not going to go over that, but the same theme. Bishop h7 check, queen goes with a check, and then bishop takes g7, king takes g7. And the last part of this is just to play the check first. He wants to do a rook lift, but this is a common theme. Make sure you play the check first, send the king to the h file, so the king doesn't have anywhere to escape. And then he does a rook lift. The finishing combination was black still survived. Actually, black played e5. After check, actually gave up the queen. Believe it or not, black has a lot of material. So it's still not that obvious. But after takes, the final blow was queen to d7. So I would say this is a really, really cool game to analyze. I'm going to go back really quickly to this point. So remember this move, knight h5, distracting the knight. And after knight takes h5, instead of taking back the knight with the usual queen captures h5, double bishop sacrifice. Bishop h7 check, and bishop takes g7. Just remember this. This pattern I think is really, really cool. All right, so we have our games. And I'm going to go over. Dinesh gets to go first. Dinesh, you can tell us a little bit about the game. Where did you play this? And I see the accuracy level is pretty good. I like that, which means we're going to have a solid game. Let's get this going. Okay. We got our game, and Dinesh is playing. So it's against Czech Magnus, who is Neil Samath. I like that. And you're black, so I'm going to flip the board. And let's go over this. So e4, e5. Was this played in chess.com? I'm guessing it is because it was last month. And what was the time control, Dinesh? Let me know that as well. That's kind of useful when we are looking at the game. Okay, so we got knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, the regular Italian, bishop c5, and d4. Okay, so this is, of course, some tricky line. Oh, we got a 3-minute game. Okay, since the accuracy is high, hopefully you still have interesting stuff in this game. But again, try to give me some, have a rapid game. Well, you can even go back to older games if you want to. Actually, that also means that you might have to start playing some rapid games. What about your league games, Dinesh? I think those are also games you need to be looking at and analyzing, okay? Coming back to the move, this is kind of tricky move. You have to be a little careful. Most players are probably used to the move order of d4 early on, and after pawn takes and bishop c4. This is a typical Scotch gambit, so switching the move order can be a little tricky, but I think just pawn takes d4 transposes, nothing special. Knight to g5. I'm not so sure if this is a good move. Don't you have knight to e5? Yep, I think knight to e5 should be good. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the theory on this is, and if you're just pulling some random move here, because there could be some lines, and particularly in a blitz game, there's a lot of interesting stuff. But I would say bishop goes, and then you can just go maybe h6. The point being that by the time you hit my knight to try to attack this one, your knight's already gone. So I think this should be okay for black. So let me go back. Ayush is saying yes, c3. Yeah, there are lots of moves here, Ayush. I think c3 is played, castling is played. Castle, knight f6. There is e5, d5 kind of lines. Lots of... Yes, one of the variations that Ayush is mentioning is this. Pawn captures and bishop captures f7 check. And queen to d5 check. And I think maybe king f8 or king e8, and then queen takes here. And it's not so bad for black. It's still playable. So, but I wouldn't recommend this line for black. I would just recommend going knight f6. Sorry, actually castle knight f6 is c3. You can still go knight f6 because after pawn takes you have bishop b4 check, transposing to another main line. So all of these lines would kind of transpose anyways, you know. There's also e5 d5 line here. Anyways, going back to the game, knight g5 was played, knight h6. Okay, so you did not go with knight e5, you went for knight h6. Vedanta, hi. We could send our game through email, but I usually ask a question, and the first person to answer the question is the one who usually gets the game analyzed. So today we have Dinesh and Ayush after that, who were the first two. So maybe next time you can come in a little early and make sure you answer the question right on time, okay? Don't worry about anything. You can still look at the games. I like to analyze the game with all of you. So, yes, Coach Robert is just giving me the answer. Yes, you were not live, Coach Robert. I think hopefully you're live now and you were not looking at the beginning of the stream. Oh, by the way, knight takes f7 tactics. So, a common tactic. The bishop is hanging, which means queen h5 check can go in to pick up the bishop. And at this point, I would think that white is doing good. g6 queen takes. Okay, so let's try to assess this. We have equal pawns actually. So black is not doing so bad with the pawns, but the king is a little weak. And I'm thinking if g6 was also necessary. You have to think about the fact that you're going to lose your dark squared bishop and white is going to have the dark squared bishop. So maybe just king f8 followed by queen e7, possibly. Okay, with queen c5, queen e7 still. I think it's still playable. Bad, but playable. So queen c4 check again makes a lot of sense, because in this position I would not want to go into an endgame, because the minute white trades queens, I think black is fine, right? You're going to go right into a regular endgame, and I believe black should be more than okay there. But with the king being in the center like this, it's natural that you don't trade, right? Queen to c4 check, queen e6. I like queen e6. You're forcing the queen trade, yeah? Because if the queen moves, you get to play d5, putting pressure on this pawn. Not bad at all. What should white play here? I'm trying to see how should white keep up this situation of like attacking the king. Because in the game you played queen d3 and you played d5, and I'm beginning to like black's position. I'm beginning to like black's position, yeah. So I didn't know, Coach Robert, you have a stream afterwards. That's fantastic, guys. If you don't know that, Coach Robert has a... Wait, Coach Robert, are you doing it in Twitch or is it in YouTube? I know you have a Twitch stream. You can, yeah, you can post the link so people can, we're seeing this, can join in. It's going to be double stream for them, one after another, which is good. Coming back to the position, I think this, I'm beginning to like for black. So what do you guys think? What can we do? Let's dig a little deeper to see, can white do something better here? Probably queen e2. Maybe queen e2 seems more like the move. Oh, I didn't realize you've been doing it in Thursday as well, Coach Robert. But anyways, that's good. YouTube streaming is good because a lot of our kids are used to this, I think. Queen e2, I would think, is probably the best idea. Coming back to the game, the reason I think this is because I want one move where white can castle. Again, I'm looking at this from white's perspective. I feel like what's the best way to exploit the king? Keep the queens on the board and try to get, you know, castling done. Once I get castling done, maybe giving up the pawn is not that big a deal. For example, rook here, maybe knight d2. I mean, it's still kind of interesting because if you play d5, I think black is still creating a lot of pressure. So I might have to think that this is actually already okay for black. So Dinesh, you did a good job. Let's go back a few more moves. When knight takes f7 was played, I definitely felt like white's better. So g6, queen takes c5, queen e7. And one of the problems that white is facing is to be able to exploit this weak king, you need some developed pieces, and they're all like sitting there and not developed. So I think by putting enough pressure on e4 and making sure that white doesn't get like that one critical move to castle. So I'll show you an example. Let's say queen c4 check if black casually plays king g7. I think it could be a critical mistake. Watch this. I just castle. So the biggest difference now is you could win the pawn, but I really don't care. Yeah. So if you just take the pawn, I just go like knight d2. So and then I play knight f3, or like, you know, I think this is more than enough compensation for white, and black king will suffer for a few moves. And remember how I told you the dark squared bishop is going to be a problem for black? It's absolutely going to be like that in the future. I might even play like b3, bishop b2. So this is more of a long-term compensation. But the key problem for white is this move that Dinesh played in the game, immediately forcing these queen trades. So, so Sai, I will try to look at your game, but since you had emailed me saying that you're not going to be here, I had promised Dinesh and Ayush. But let's go over one at a time. Focus on this game. Let's see this first, and then we'll go after that, okay? So, yeah, critical point in this game, I would say. Black is gaining enough momentum here. So, pawn takes pawn. Do we need to take it right now? I think if I was playing black, I would be a little cautious about pawn takes pawn. You see, this is going to be a problem, right? Why do you want to allow the f file to be open with a check right away? And I don't see an immediate reason to do that. So maybe rook e8 followed by king g7, or king g7 first. I don't know. One of the two moves I would prefer. Like, let's just play a couple of moves. King g7, let's say castle, and let's say rook e8. This seems more reasonable to me, because now you're not having that open file, like, you know, immediately creating any problems for you. And, you know, pawn takes d5, queen takes d5 still seems really nice because the bishop gets out. Maybe white will play knight c3 or something, and then try to go knight e4. But by any means, this doesn't look like it's that bad for black, yeah? But let's go to the critical point. D takes e4, pawn takes e4. So now you're looking at similar stuff with the dangerous open file, and that's a little scary, right? So you have to be very careful in such positions, guys. When you have an open king, you have to think twice, okay? So Vedanta, the way this works here is you're asking if you have to email your game. You can come in the beginning of the stream. I'll ask a question. Whoever answers first gets a chance to analyze their game, right? So let's get back to the game here. Focus on the game and focus on the analysis right now. At the end of the game, we can talk about other things, okay? So that way you will be involved in the game analysis. You will be involved in the comments here. You can, of course, feel free to chat about variations that you want me to look at or questions you might have. But, you know, we have to analyze all of this together. That'll be the best. That'll give the most for all of us, okay? So, Mahir says, white needs to develop, but black's knight is unsafe. Well, I wouldn't really... Oh, black's king is unsafe. Fair enough, yep. Black's king is super unsafe, and that's exactly why we talked about the f-file not opening up. I mean, the opening up the f-file now definitely makes me think the black king is even more in danger. So, bishop to d7... castle check and king to e7. I am going to have a big problem with that. Dark squares are weak as it is. Why would you move your king this way? Dinesh, what were you thinking? Let's go. I know it's a 3-minute game, you said. So I guess the question of what were you thinking is kind of not going to be the best question in this position. King g7, fair enough. I think king g7 is the move that has to be played here. And you just hope that there is nothing going on h6. If I get bishop h6 to go somewhere, somehow that's going to be a problem for you. But the good news is, let's say any direct threats like this to get to h6, you can just play h5 or maybe even h6 to stop queen h6 ideas. So I cannot directly go to attack you. Ridhima is saying rook f8. That's right. At some point, rook f8 is coming into. White might have to just develop right now. I might just think that white has to go bishop here. And yeah, if rook a f8, then maybe knight d2. And the game is more reasonable and more slow. Yeah. Mahir is saying casting was a good move. Of course, yes, I agree with that. Multi-purpose move, right? Get your king to safety and get your rook to open file. So rook f8, knight d2. It just looks like black's king, even though it's weak, at least it's in a castle formation a little bit, right? So the rooks are connected and everything. So king e7 is just asking for trouble, Dinesh. So I'm going to go, I would think at this point white's pretty much winning, because king safety takes the biggest priority over anything else, right? Bishop g5 check. You had to go king e8. And remember what I was talking about, connecting the rooks? When your king is not castled, it's basically the most important factor. The most important factor about castling kings is connecting rooks, right? Your rooks will end up being completely disconnected and lost when your king is not castled and stuck here. And now add that with the beautiful f file and a strong diagonal. So yeah, this position is pretty lost. I would not play a3 here. So I guess what he's trying to do is maybe stop knight b4 kind of ideas. So here, if I'm playing white, let's suggest some moves. What do you guys think? What would you play here? Let's remove the arrow so you guys can think about the position and give me some moves. The king is completely cut off. That's right. The king has no moves. Stuck in the middle. What move would you play? It is white to play, Ayush, not black to play. I think some of you are playing knight e5 and rook f8. Mahir, it is white to play. White played bishop to g5 check, and black played king to e8, and it's white move. Coach John says knight to d2. I like it. Knight to a3. Sai, I like that. Getting the rook out. Fair enough. I would think that these are definitely two main candidate moves. Knight here and knight here. And I would also add in c3 as my candidate move. Because any move that creates a problem, in the sense like it creates a threat. So it just creates an immediate problem. Think about this. If I am playing black here, my only goal is to just kind of resolve my situation, right? Play a couple of moves. Play like rook f8, maybe trade this rook, and then maybe find a way to move my king over to this side, and then get this rook out, right? So what do I need as black? I need time, right? I just need time to get my position settled in. And in this point, if you play a move like c3, I think you're immediately attacking the pawn. So that's going to be a problem, right? Sai says knight to d2 is a better square for the knight. But I like threats, because knight a3, I think, is also a threat. Because you want to go knight to b5, and black has to worry about it. Every move that you create a threat, I really like. Sai is asking about rook f6. I think rook f6 is possibly a good idea too. But I would be comfortable with rook f6 when I can follow up with doubling up and stuff like that, right? So think about queen e5 here, for example. I'm hitting the bishop. I don't think the rook added too much value, yeah? So it's okay, but not that best. So anyways, I think c3 looks pretty interesting to me, because I'm just simply threatening to win a pawn. And if you do take, I go knight c3. And now I think you can all see that rook d1, knight d5, knight b. I mean, this is just game over. So I think c3 would be the best idea. All right, go on. a3 was played. h6, bishop f6, and rook f8. Okay, so what can we do here? I'm thinking of a couple of moves. I could just protect the bishop. What do you guys think? Let's see. First, you need to move the knight, then directly play rook f1. Okay, I guess you're talking about the previous position on developing for white. But let's look at some moves here for white. What do you think can be done? The bishop is under attack. Bishop to g7. Okay, possible. You can even just take the pawn with bishop takes d4, I guess. You would be up a pawn, but you would be trading a lot of stuff. I already feel like, I mean, this is, white has given up some stuff, but I think we still need to be precise right here to come up with the best, best way to attack. because black can get away from this, right? Black has a chance to trade the rooks off, which is the most important thing. Taking the pawn is bad. I'm hearing queen f3. What else? Castling. Well, castling is already done. I'm not so sure what you mean, Ridhima. Bishop g7. White king will also be unsafe. Mahir, the queen can go back and take also, if it's possible. So let's look at some of the moves. For example, bishop g7, rook takes rook. And yeah, if king takes, I think that king is not... Well, actually, king takes is a blunder, yeah? You just play check and you lose the bishop. So that's not good. And if queen takes, again... Oh, I was thinking I can take the pawn, and I was about to get checkmated in one move. So, but what can I do? Maybe queen f7 here again. Maybe somehow black can get away with just losing one pawn. And that's there. e5 is definitely interesting, Kojan. That's definitely one of the moves to consider. And in fact, I was calculating e5 more. Let's explore that in a second. And I think, Mahir, you said bishop takes d4 is not good. I don't know. I mean, like, at some point, if I feel like I don't have much, I might have to just take it, right? Actually, you're right. I don't like this because I think the tables are going to be turned. Because rook takes, king takes. And I feel like maybe black will start attacking white. Now watch this. Queen captures. You go bishop b5 check. And the next move is rook d8. So a second ago, it was white that was in great position. And now I think black is going right back at white. And I feel like, I mean, there are some checks and stuff, but this is really not where white wants to be, right? I hope all of you can agree with that. That you don't want to give the initiative back by picking up that pawn. I mean, if you trade off and go to an extra pawn in game, I would still think it's worth considering, but definitely not like this. So bishop takes d4, I would say, is rejected. We don't want to do that. Bishop g7, not so great. Let's look at e5. I was looking at it. Coach John was suggesting that too. Now, the good thing about e5 is we are also hitting this pawn. But of course, the main response is knight takes e5. So knight's guarding g6. So what can we do now? So I think the one move like a3 probably made a big difference, guys. I feel like this knight out in this position, right, would mean a lot. That rook would be able to go to e1. So this is how it's just so important to play with initiative, right? Every single move. So yeah, Vedanta is saying you develop the knight. That's right. That's what I want to do, Vedanta, but I'm one move short. Watch this. If bishop captures e5, well, I have to move the bishop. Just to clarify, your bishop is under attack. So you kind of have to take. And after rook takes, seems like again I have to take with the... Yeah, actually I can take with the king. Because after queen takes e5, which is forced, white has queen takes g6. So eventually winning this pawn is not a bad idea. King e7. And the only reason I still think it's not a bad idea is because I think I can play knight d2 and knight f3. Right? Watch this. I go knight d2. And if you play any check, I have knight f3. But I just noticed black has this check. Queen f6 check. Queen has to take. King has to take. Who do you guys like more? White or black? I think the answer should be kind of obvious here. But I just want to ask to be clear. Who would you prefer in this endgame? That's right, Sai. Black is clearly better. I think bishop is better than knight in this endgame because the position is wide open, right? In an open position like this, the bishop is going to make a lot of difference. And I also like this very strong advanced pawn. So, Ridhima, you're right. Black is much better in this endgame. And also, too many tiny things. The king being more advanced and, possibly attacking this pawn with bishop f5 ideas. So overall, I just like black. So let's go back. So this is how the position can change up quickly, right? 1 second, we thought white should be killing with the initiative. And white played one move a3 and suddenly black has multiple ways to come back into the game. All right, I'm going to go back and see what happened in the game. Because in the game, bishop d4 was played. Okay. So Neil did go for bishop captures d4, getting the pawn back. White can give a check. So Coach Robert says white can give a check. Let's explore that. So e5, knight takes, bishop takes, takes, and king here. And then white can play queen h7 check. I guess that's what you're talking about. But even then, let's say play king e6. Okay, so basically you will play the same position, but this time up up a pawn. Yeah, queen h7 check followed by queen h6 check. By the way, queen h7 check looks like it's a good move because after king e6 and you take check. Now I do trade, but I think now white's going to be better because white's going to be up. So I guess I got the reference from a different move, but it turns out to be a good move, Robert. So queen h7 still worked. Okay, so going back to the game, let's see what happened when the bishop took on d4, which is what played in the game, Rook takes f1, king takes f1, knight takes d4, king takes d4. So Dinesh, you missed bishop to b5 check. Actually, I like going over this game because I think we are understanding the importance of initiative, which I've been doing a lot of lessons off late, talking about it to my students about this. Initiative is very interesting in chess. You know, lots of players like to play aggressive, play active, right? But that comes with an important point. You have to create threats. When you have a better position, to put it simply, you have to create threats so your opponent cannot react easily. Your opponent's position is bad, right? But let's say you give them the time to rebuild their position, then they can basically get away with this. So when you launch your attack, they'll be able to defend. In this case, for example, I need only one move as white. I'm just one move behind, not too much, right? But if I'm playing if I'm playing white, if I have knight c3, I think white's completely better, just up a pawn. So to create some pressure, maybe this check, like I said, was absolutely necessary. You have to play this, right? Even that, maybe it's going to be a trade. For example, check, we stopped here, but I just noticed queen h8 check is going to be saving the game for white because I have another check. If I go king e7 or something, queen h7 check. So just this check, I would say, is saving the game. Or let's say play king d7, attacking the queen, and you play another check, and then king c8, like an artificial castling. But again, the one move that I wanted, I got it. Right? One move, I got it because I got queen h8 check. That's how initiative is, right? All you need is to complete your development to keep your king safe. So, okay, white's still better here from what we have seen now because that one check saving that, stopping all the threats and getting knight c3 in. Okay, so king e7 was played. Interesting. So rook to f8 is coming up next. But I'm not too worried. I guess the king can go to g1. So maybe knight c3, knight to d2. I don't think that's the best move. Knight to c3. The idea of knight to d5 seems good enough because rook to f8 check and king to g1. Yeah. So this is clearly going to be better for white with an extra pawn. So going back, knight d2, rook f8 check, king g1, and then queen b6. Not bad. I think white's queen is in a much better place. So trading that queen is not a bad idea. However, white's up a pawn. So this endgame is going to be tough. Let's see. Queen takes b6, c takes b6. Ooh, no. Dinesh. No. We cannot do c takes b6. You have to play a takes b6. Always capture towards the center. Right? I still would put a good chance for a draw because you have a bishop against a knight. Right? And in an open position like this, if white had a bishop and black had a knight, I would say the winning chances go up quite a bit. But you cannot capture here with c takes b6. It ruins your structure even more. Okay, so not getting that move. This is an endgame. In an endgame, remember that king is your most active piece. So I don't see a reason for why you should go back and hide or anything like that here, right? So, I mean, your king is in a good shape. Maybe knight e5 is one of the moves you're worried about, but I think you have rook f6. So I don't see a huge problem with this. Your king should stay where it is. It's a very strong position, right? Active king. Yeah, Coach Robert has a fantastic exception. Yeah, always capture the pawn towards the center. Unless you have to capture the other way around. Yeah. It's super obvious. You should all know that. King d8, rook d1, king c8, knight e5. Okay, so and bishop e8. Ooh. Okay, so I think the 3-minute game is coming into play here. We just are dropping material. I don't know why I can't just take on g6, but okay. Rook d6 also looks pretty good. Now the free pawn. Okay, I guess he's simplifying. Rook takes e5 and rook takes h6. Okay, this is completely lost. Black can create some counterplay, but it's going to be probably too slow. I can play this and, you know, take these pawns, but it's going to take me like 2 moves to capture some of the pawns. And also, thanks to the pawn structure here, it's going to be even worse to create a pass pawn. So this is clearly worse. So let's see how it went. I mean, white is doing the right thing by giving up those 2 pawns to gain some momentum with the pawns and move forward. Yeah, so he's pushed the pawn really quickly. Okay, so again, the cost of those 2 pawns are basically a couple of moves. White has established a pawn on 5th and 6th rank, which are connected, which is usually good enough, I think, to win the game. Let's remove all these arrows. Okay, rook h7. Okay. Ooh. What just happened here? I think at this point they're probably down to the last few seconds. Blitzing h6 is definitely not a move you want to play. Unless you want to struggle to make a draw. Well, you could make an easy draw. But everything that was built up to this point is lost with h6. So the most natural way to go up is, of course, g7. And then h6. So that's how you kind of move up. And then you play h6, then you go rook h8. So your rook and the 2 pawns kind of move up like that. So Dinesh says, look ahead. Looks like there's more entertainment for us. So let's see it. h6, rook h2 check, king g3. So unfortunately now you don't get to pick up the pawn. But actually you do. You could play king takes g6 even now. Very interesting. Vedanta is asking who was playing this game. Vedanta, white is Neil, Saman, and black is Dinesh. They have a huge rating difference, but Dinesh, I have to say, it's good that you kept the game this close, right? Doesn't matter what the rating is. I like that. Now, the first thing I'm saying is you could take the pawn on g6, because if king takes, black is winning. Black is clearly winning this endgame because I have more pawns. This is just an easy win. The funny thing is this check doesn't change anything, because after I take, again, both rooks are under attack. So looks like still okay for black, because the only thing white can do is essentially play something like this, and then the game will just be a draw, right? So looks like king g6 was still a move, but rook a2 was played. Okay, g7. Now black should be completely lost. So I'm trying to see what interesting thing happened here. Rook check. So you kept checking, which makes a lot of sense. And eventually the rook probably went down to g2. No. Okay, so this is lost. I don't know if you had anything more than this, Dinesh, that you wanted us to see, but this looks like, yeah. No, it's a good game, Dinesh. I think you played pretty well, but now it's just lost. Okay, I'm going to just, yeah, that just ended in a checkmate, because you let him queen. But here it doesn't really make a difference, right? If you play rook g2, rook h8, and it's still lost. So this is not going to be much, right? So let me go back and point out that at this point is your only chance, really, yeah? So you were lost in that endgame mostly, but here you missed king takes g6. But super low on time, so that's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay, so Ayush already sent me a game this week, Sai. So we'll stick to your game for next week, like we had planned. We have 15 more minutes, so I'm going to take a look at Ayush's game right now, and we will hold on to your game for next week, Sai. Ayush, I'm going to pick up your game right now. So I see that you have sent 2 games and you have sent me the second game. Let me make sure I get this. But before I move on to the game itself, let me just explain or like wrap our conversation around this particular game that we just saw. I think this is a pretty solid game in terms of initiative. Hopefully you guys really understood the value of initiative. Dinesh, in particular, I think you should try to understand the importance of the king safety, right? You started off tough in the opening, but you could have salvaged your king by moving to g7. You left the king in the center, and you again got a chance back because Neil probably wasted one important move with a3, and you still had some chances in the endgame, but not bad. All right, so we have finally a long game. I like this. Okay, if I can figure out a way to copy this game. Copy game. Okay, let's get rid of this whole game. And then let's copy. Okay, got it. Cool, so Ayush is playing white, so I'm going to turn this around. So this was a Mid-Atlantic League game, which is G60, everyone. So we have a nice long game, and you're playing Phoenician. I don't know what the actual. Do you know what the player's actual rating was, Ayush? Let's move on with the game while Ayush is giving us some more information. So e4, d6, the Perk defense. d4, knight f6, bishop d3. Okay, not bishop d3. You want knight c3. Knight c3 is the more logical move. Oh, someone rated 1650. That's good. That's a pretty solid win then. I like that. By the way, yeah, Ayush, you want to go knight c3. Bishop d3 is not the most common. Actually, I'm trying to think why. We should never always believe anything, right? Bishop d3 is not played here usually. Maybe c5 or e5. I mean, I feel like one of the reasons should be to leave the file open, because black eventually does play c5 or e5. I mean, the typical structures where they go c6, they still have a chance to play e5, and there are some other structures where they could play c5. So let's go on. Knight bd7, knight e2. Okay. e5. So even e5 is the most natural thing. c4, bishop e7. So you're playing kind of a weird, I mean, against a weird structure. This is, I mean, this is called the Old Indian defense. But last week I was telling you all a little bit, or the week before that, we were talking about the difference of playing c4 and not playing c4 between the Perk or the modern defense and King's Indian, right? Do you know if it's a king pawn or a queen pawn opening, or if it got transposed? How do you know that? Usually the difference comes with this move. If the pawn goes to c4 and then knight goes to c3, it is a queen pawn opening. If I play knight to c3 right here, it's going to stay a king pawn opening, right? So you studied this for him, Ayush. Okay, that's excellent. That's really nice. I would still say this is not bishop d3 knight e2. I'm not 100% sure, but okay. I mean, if it's opening theory and you studied, and if you have any solid, strong players games to look for, then definitely not a problem. Knight bc3, c6, and castle. So I definitely prefer white's position now, because you have placed your knight on e2 to really play f4, and that means you have like unbelievable amount of space and center control, right? Queen c2. Do I need it? Why do we need queen c2? I really want to play f4. So the only thing I would be worried about is this diagonal, and maybe some random ideas with knight g4. Like for example, I want to play f4, but I would be worried about this and any strange ideas like this. The reason I'm worried is because after bishop e3, actually a knight g4 tricks don't work. I was thinking if I can do some kind of a knight g4 trick to use the discover attack, but I don't really see how I can use it. Like for example, knight g4, queen takes g4, and if knight e5, I could just go back. And I don't see any real tricks. So remember this queen b6 would probably be much stronger if I can play knight g4. And I'm not so sure about taking the pawn. Maybe some of you are considering this, but I really feel like this is too dangerous. Maybe even knight f5. And I think white should be in a great position. For example, if you take, I will first play this move. And when the queen moves, I'll take on e7. And I think white is probably crushing it, you know. Not compensation, it's probably just winning. Anyways, going back, f4 might be possible directly. So Ayush, the point is, your opponent's passive play, you need to kind of take action, right? He's too passive. His bishop is not developed. He's giving you the center and giving you more space. So you have to go after it, okay? So queen c2, takes. That's kind of convenient that he let you do that. And I also like how you kept the piece. This is a very good idea. You know, one of the most common mistakes that people do is trade when opponents are low on space. So you don't even have to do anything. Just don't trade. That in itself will create problems for your opponent, right? So black is lacking space. Black doesn't have enough space because the pawns are behind. I have 4 minor pieces. Think about this. I have 4 minor pieces as black. And I don't know where I'm going to put all of them, right? So trading these pieces will make it easy for your opponent. So bishop e2, nice. And also, of course, you don't want to trade a bishop for a knight in an open position. Here's a classic example. Look at that. The knight and the bishop fighting for the same square, right? Only because I have too many pieces and I lack space. So f4, I think real problem. After knight g6, bishop e3, rook c8, and rook a d1. Okay, so I really feel like white's in a great position. I mean, this should be a dream position. Look at your minor pieces. Look at the space you've created, and look at your rook. I mean, super active pieces, all in good place. So hopefully this was just good enough, and there is no more twist to this game. Hey Ryan just joined. This is Ayush's game from Mid-Atlantic Chess League. Knight f3. Do we need knight f3? I know you are trying to plan e5, and usually you can go like bishop f3 or something. I was thinking maybe king h1 is the simplest thing to start with. One of the reasons is I don't want knight g4 to happen. Remember how I told you I don't want trades? So knight g4 is possibly a move that can kick this bishop out. So that's the problem I even probably have with knight f3. Oh, Ayush says there's a huge twist. Okay, I'm looking forward to it. So, ooh, he did not. Looks like he picked up the pawn on a7. Okay, I'm just seeing the twist right here already. So knight f3 was played. So I'm going to pause this again. I'm going to say king h1 is something that I would have liked to play. If you play knight g4, I simply pull my bishop back. Again, no trades. Keep the position as it is. At some point, I'm going to get the winning idea with e5 or f5. F5 I'll be careful about because the knight will go to e5, right? So f5 I would be a little cautious about, but e5 kind of breakthrough, sorry, let's remove this, is going to be very strong. So knight f3 allows black to play knight g4 and bishop takes a7. Now this is, I'm not going to say this is bad, but this definitely is gutsy. I feel like you're taking a big chance. So first, of course, the first move we are thinking about, I'm guessing, is b6. So it looks like a famous Fischer move. Bishop takes h2. Ayush is playing bishop takes a7. But I think after b6, I might not be able to save that pawn if I simply attack it, yeah? Ooh, b6 also threatens this. Why not b6? Yeah, you can play queen b3 or knight a4. This has gotten too crazy. You did make this super crazy. Like, for example, queen b3, I can play knight f4, I can play knight e3. Man, knight e3, okay, bishop takes b6, maybe winning for white. Because I'm hitting the queen and the knight. And I don't see any forcing moves, but knight takes f4 might be possible, sacrificing in exchange. But maybe, I agree that overall it looks like white is coming back with something. And Coach Robert is talking about the second most important move to look at is just play c5 and kill that bishop out of the game, yeah? And that looks actually more reasonable because then I have a lot more solid block on your bishop, right? So that was played in the game. Okay, c5, and you played knight to d5. Okay, so your knight's saving both and threatening bishop b6. So not bad, not bad. So knight to d5 is the move. I have to say literally that's saving your game right now. Is there anything I can do? What can I do? Actually, looking at knight d5, it seems like c5 does not win as like a great move. I'm also thinking there's a possible queen a5. But in this case, I would have to live playing down a pawn. Actually, yeah, no, I'm winning the pawn on c4. So, okay, let's look at queen a5. So I'm hitting the bishop. And moves like queen a4 would lose because queen takes a4, knight takes a4, and rook a8. So let's just clarify that. I think that's just winning for black. Unless there is this move. Okay, I'm just going to take rook a7 and play knight e3. Okay, so that's lost. So queen a5, I think the bishop needs to come back, right? And let's say the bishop comes back to d4. I think I want to play c5. I think this is, of course, nice for black because the bishop has to go to f2. Is there anything else we can see, guys? No, I think bishop f2 is almost forced. And before I take I could take the bishop directly, or I might just take the pawn first. So I feel like I did not win the bishop, I did not trap the bishop, but I think I changed the scene. I changed this position to be very active for black. So I'm kind of happy with that. So I think the most precise out of all the variations I'm seeing is queen a5, giving me a very comfortable position. And after c5, Robert, that's right, rook c6 is also a possible idea, but let's take a look at that again. Anyways, I think it's worth looking at. Rook to c6 was played in the game. I'm thinking if I'm white, I have to start with h3. Yeah, I'm not so sure. So the problem with this idea now for black, I feel like the best you're going to get is a rook for 2 pieces when I play bishop b6. So I think black is investing too much on this, right? Like for example, let's say I play h3. There is nowhere to go but to go back to f6, right? And I can just play something like e5. And I'm beginning to think that there is too much pressure building when I'm too focused on that one bishop on a7. So the worst case scenario for, the best case scenario is you will get rook for 2 pieces. When you go rook a6, I'll play bishop b6, right? Well, actually, in this case, maybe the best case scenario is you will win a piece. But even here, oh wait, sorry, too late. You cannot go rook a6 because the bishop is guarding it. So you'll have to spend more moves. You'll have to go rook back and then try to go there to win that. In the meantime, look at the center. I'm pretty sure white will have something here. So even though I've not calculated the whole thing, I feel like there should be something for white. It's just a general feeling. So overall, anyways, let's go on with the game. Queen a5 I would have liked more. Bishop b6 was played. Okay, so it looks like Ayush is already giving up that bishop for rook for 2 pieces. So knight takes, queen takes, and e5. Okay, fair enough. I cannot take the pawn because the rook will take the bishop. That seems straightforward. I would be losing a piece there. And if not, the knight doesn't have good squares. Whew. Has to go to h5. Okay, it did go to h5. And now, how do you save this pawn? How would we save this pawn? Yeah, I feel like black is completely better here, right? I mean, if I'm going to jump in knight f4, knight g3, I think black is totally winning. Unless white finds something here, it's completely lost. Let's take a look at this. Pawn takes d6, bishop takes d6. One of the ideas I'm seeing is maybe I can double attack queen d2 or something. You see this is a pattern that you want to work on. There is a skewer, but I feel like this should not work. One, of course, is there is an immediate counter problem. Two, there is just all sorts of moves jumping in all over the place. So whatever white is doing, it should not work. If it worked, I think it might be a crazy coincidence. Okay, so he did, of course, throw in crazy stuff here. The knight's under attack and the bishop's under attack. So, okay, what is the simplest thing I can do? The simplest thing I can think of is just go back. Just play knight f6, yeah? Because my knight and the bishop are both under attack, and I just go back to defend both. The main idea for white, I guess, is that he's thinking that, like, watch this. If bishop takes, pawn takes, again, the double attack still exists. So white wants to win material using that. I could play knight g3, but rook takes d7. I mean, I'm still going to prefer black, I guess, with maybe knight takes e5. And at some point, I'm just going to take the rook back. It might be equal material, but I think black is probably a little bit more active. But going back again, I think knight f6. I mean, in crazy complications, you have to figure out what is the best way to take care of this. Knight f6, because now, let's look at all the captures. If you take on g6, I take back. I think I'm completely fine. And like I said, there is no real problem of attacking these two, because even if, let's say, you play something like queen d2, you're not threatening anything. Or actually, in this case, you're not really threatening anything. I can just move the bishop. So that's not going to work. If you do knight takes d7, and then let's say you play something like queen d2, again, you're not threatening both, because I can simply move my knight. And taking this bishop means that you're going to lose this bishop. So this is just probably the best way for black to come out on top. But Ayush, you're right. You kind of complicated this and made it very difficult for your opponent. So knight f6 is not easy to find. Let's see what he did. He played knight h4. So he's giving up that d7 bishop, but he's attacking the e2 bishop. Seems like a fair thing to do. Except it hits the queen. So again, knight takes d7. If you play knight takes e2, I can play queen takes e2 because knight is going to take on b6. So knight takes d7. He did play knight e2. Okay, so this is probably how he blundered. So knight e2, queen e2. Unless I have queen d8. No, queen d8 is queen d2 or something. This should be lost. Rook takes e2 and knight takes b6. So white's up an exchange and up a pawn. Okay, so he came out very nicely out of this sequence with this. So I guess knight e5 is too critical. Yeah, it looks like this is the point where black should have been very careful, and knight hf4 might have been a little too much. Actually, maybe this is not a problem. I just have to maybe go back. What if I go back? This still looks interesting because I'm hitting the bishop and your knight, and if there is anything at all, I mean, I don't think I should find anything great here because bishop g4 and yeah, I feel like maybe now white's out of any dangerous threats. I think it's completely gone. Critical point was this knight e5. But Ayush, one thing I want you to remember is this going forward. So this is actually a critical point. I think you playing bishop to b6 here was too committal. I think you have a great position here. This is super interesting to me. I feel like maybe you should even start considering with maybe f5 is also interesting, right? The reason I'm thinking is any way this file opens up, it's going to be super interesting. Neil, I did not see your mid-Atlantic game. I know there was some kind of a rook blunder from before. I don't know if that's the game I saw. I know there was one. Maybe it's the same one that I did see. I can't remember exactly about the Mid-Atlantic game. But yeah, but we did see one of your games today, Neil. I think Dinesh shared one of your blitz games earlier in the stream. I think you were, except one move a3, I think I felt like your game was pretty good, the previous one. But Ayush, yes, this is pretty interesting game, man. I really, really like it. This is, I would love, because this, at some point, everything just went up in the air. But yeah, moves like f5, for example. Let's say knight goes to e5. Knight captures, pawn captures, and I feel like maybe something here. I mean, I'm still too worried about this, no questions. Yeah, f5 is interesting, but e5 has to be the move. E5 has to be the move. It just kind of looks like it, right? You have to analyze this position to see what's happening with e5. For example, we saw knight captures, pawn captures, and the rook just goes back. With the idea of maybe rook a8. And white needs to figure out a way to get something here. So for example, let's start with e6. Yeah, I mean, it has to be. There is no way that black can survive this kind of an onslaught. Because if bishop captures e6, there is f5, it's a simple pawn fork, and you're winning material here. When the bishop moves somewhere, I don't know, or maybe even knight, oh actually knight g5 the bishop will take. Maybe bishop d3 to go after the king. Maybe pawn f5. Yeah, I just cannot put exactly one move. I feel like this is just good enough, strong. Anyway, super interesting game and super interesting tactics. And the whole game was decided in this particular point where black could have played knight f6. So, and black would have consolidated. All right. I guess that was a pretty fun game. Thanks for sharing your games. So we had I guess Neil's game with Dinesh and then Ayush's game in Mid-Atlantic that we analyzed today. Just letting you know, guys, tomorrow we don't have Challenger Chess Coach. It's going to be the long weekend. All of you have fun, stay safe, enjoy some time off. I know you've all been playing a lot and studying a lot. We have a lot of activities coming up. We have all the summer camps lined up. We have a few interesting activities like Chess for Teens. Chess for Teens is a new program we're starting this month, where we're going to do a lot of fun activities with chess. So we're going to work on chess and do, like, you know, team tournaments and stuff like that, logical puzzles and stuff like that. We also have our next Mastermind Chess Camp, which is going to be July 20 to 24. We already started getting people signing up. If your rating is over 1500, you could do that. We also have an advanced camp at the same week on July 20 to 24 for players between 1000 to 1500. So all of that is going to be fun. This month is a lot of chess activity. Ayush says thanks. No problem, Ayush. I'm very happy that we have so many activities and it's all engaging for all of you guys. And thank you for coming here and watching this as always. I hope you guys learned something. And I will see you next Thursday with the game analysis. Happy 4th of July. Enjoy your long weekend and bye.